Well, hey, what's going on? Welcome into another edition of Chatterbox Reds. Nick Kirby, joined by my good friend Mike Hart. And Mike was going to try to come on Thursday night last week, have something ready for Friday when the arbitration stuff came out. But I had a root canal on Thursday, and I just said, I can't do this. And boy, did the Reds make me pay for that, because now we've got news stacked on news, stacked on news, stacked on news. Not a lot of sexy news really to report, but there was a lot of Reds news. It felt like, from Thursday all the way through Sunday, the Reds had something interesting that happened.
Yeah, I agree. It was interesting to see all of the different either minor league signings or notices of people that may still be on the roster or stashed somewhere, or additions to the bullpen. It was good to see. I know. I wish that they would go and maybe make a sexy signing. Maybe not an Alex Bregman, but somebody, at least a hitter, to come in and be your DH. But I think that we'll get into it. But I think that all of the under the radar signings that they did are all good moves for a team like the Reds that can't be huge spenders, that are, in my opinion, spending the right on the correct lottery tickets to hopefully potentially contribute to this year's Reds team success.
Yeah, I agree. A lot of, I think, solid moves that and Garrett Hampson, which, whatever, it's a minor league signing. We'll have some fun with that later on. But yeah, look, we all hope they still make a move. And believe it or not, spring training, Mike, does not start tomorrow. There's still over a month until spring training. And I don't know if you followed the Cincinnati Reds before. They've made a lot of moves in late January. So let's see how this all shakes out. My personal opinion before bringing the full pitchforks out. But you do their own. If you want to lose your mind because the Reds signed Michael Toglia to a minor league deal, if that is how you need to be, fan however you want, your choice. But you know what you do have to do, Mike? You do have to do, because I know for a busy guy like myself, the last thing I want to do post-holidays is go shopping. Stores are crazy still. So the best thing you can do is stock up your freezer like Nicholas P. Kirby does to reset after a busy holiday season, with the exceptional taste of Omaha Steaks and the convenience of having high-quality proteins on hand. Comes packaged beautifully. Everything's boxed perfectly, so it fits really nice and easy into a crowded fridge or freezer like I have. My personal favorite package is the Ultimate Favorites. That includes a butcher's cut filet mignon, butcher's cut top sirloin fillets, boneless chicken breast, classic burgers, the jumbo franks, which we are all such big fans of around here, steakhouse fries, and apple tartlets, caramel apple tartlets that are fantastic. So let Omaha Steaks deliver high-quality proteins right to your door. Visit omahasteaks.com for 50% off site-wide during their end-of-season sale. And then for an extra $35 off on top of that, use promo code Chatterbox at checkout. That's omahasteaks.com, promo code Chatterbox. Terms apply. See site for details. All right, Mike. Let's talk about the most recent signing, the only big league signing, and that is relief pitcher Pierce Johnson. There was a little actually smoke on this. We don't get a whole lot of Reds moves where there's like an actual somewhat report. The Athletic said this could be a guy the Reds are interested in, I think early last week, and then boom, Sunday afternoon, he is a Cincinnati Red, kind of reinventing the bullpen, Mike.
Yeah, no word yet on what his contract will officially be. We saw this with Caleb Ferguson, I believe, too, where it took a couple days for it to officially trickle out. But yeah, I think is a good, Scott Barlow replacement. Somebody he's a 34-year-old, eight-year vet, played I think for 5 different teams, so he's been around and has similar. I'd say is going to be filling a similar role to what Scott Barlow did for us last year. Obviously, we have Pagan and Santillan at the end of the game, with potentially Ashcraft or Phillips coming in the 7th, but maybe Pierce Johnson, depending on the situation. I mean, last year he had a 3.05 ERA, which is it's quite good for a reliever. Only Pagan, Santillan, and Phillips had better on the Reds bullpen. So frankly, what he looks like to me is he looks like what Scott Barlow's numbers would have looked like if they hadn't just completely ran him into the ground at the end of the year. I think he had probably 10 less appearances and maybe 12 less innings. And it's just like, if we don't like, I don't know if you remember, as we were going in, it was, man, Barlow is coming up huge in these big situations, then just really ran out of gas. So I think it's exciting. I think it's good. We'll see what the compensation was, but I can imagine it's something that we, it's going to fit in the Reds budget, or they wouldn't have done it, and gets everything set. I think I'd say the bullpen's pretty set going into spring training.
First off, I would have no problem bringing back Scott Barlow still and adding him on top of this. But yes, he's very similar to Scott Barlow. In fact, I was looking up the numbers. I just picked since 2020 because that was really kind of when Pierce Johnson kind of came on the scene. Pierce Johnson ranked 30th among relief pitchers with 200-plus innings in FIP. Scott Barlow was 31st. Like, they were like 0.02
right
apart. So I know a lot of people made that comp, and there's actual like some evidence. I would say he's kind of more trending probably in a better direction than Scott Barlow. The one thing that I really like is that he's trending better in the walks per 9 innings, where Scott Barlow was not. This is a guy that really didn't have great command throughout his career, Mike. I mean, we're talking 2020, 21, 22, 23, all over 4 walks per 9 innings. 2024 got that down to 3.99. Then last season got that down to 2.90. So really trending in the right direction there. Just a quick kind of run through a scouting report. Throws a 4-seam fastball, averages 95.3 miles per hour, a cutter at 92.5, and a curveball at 85.8 miles per hour. The curveball, Mike, rates as the best pitch by quite a wide margin by Stuff Plus. Our friend Resident 4 said he believes it's more of a slurvish pitch, which he thinks that Derek Johnson and the rest of the Reds pitching staff and coaching staff will really enjoy to work with. But, really good barrel rate, did a pretty good job pretty good job for the most part through his career, keeping the ball in the ballpark. I mean, not great last year, but not terrible. He's had some years where he was really, really good at that. But just really, I think Mike, he's been a model of consistency. Since 2020, he's only had 1 year where he had an ERA above 4.03. That was in 2022. He had a 5.02 ERA, but he only threw 14 innings that year. So every year that he's thrown, 50-plus innings, he's had an ERA below 4.02, and most of them have been in the low 3s or even the high 2s. But if you look at something like fielding into pitching, FIP, like we like to look at, every year since 2020, he's been below 4. So a pretty consistent pitcher. He's older. He's going to be going into his age 35 season. But I don't really care about 1 year. We're assuming it's a 1 year signing. I don't really care about 1 year signings, how old a guy is, if he's pitched well. Like, I don't really think that matters much for relievers.
Right. I agree. Interesting thing about that curveball or slurve or whatever it is, he throws that 72% of the time, which is wild. It's just like, so, 3 out of every 4 pitches are coming. This curveball is coming. And I actually think that's really interesting, and just in contrast to what the Reds bullpen does. If you think about it, right, they're going to be having these flamethrowers, Luis May and Zach Maxwell, and then, Santillan and Pagan, who are, fastball heavy, fastball split. And I think Santillan's that slider. So this is just going to be something different, where you got guys that are, really fastball heavy and something that you're expecting to see. And then you bring this guy to the bullpen that's throwing you 75% sliders that rates out really well too. So I think that's just like an interesting wrinkle too, that will, I think, be able to help in just keeping hitters off balance in the late innings too. So I think I don't think I've ever seen a breaking ball split that big. Like 72%, like guys don't throw their fastballs that many that high percentage. So, I think that's an interesting thing that we're going to be able to see. That I agree. I think Derek Johnson sees something like that and is like, yeah, I'd like to work with that. Maybe, be able to hone that into just like a devastating pitch.
It's interesting too. You see a guy throwing a curveball that much and still throws 95 miles per hour. It's not he's a junk pitcher, really. I mean, he throws relatively hard. I mean, I know 95 is not certainly what 95 was 10 years ago, but I mean, he's an interesting pitcher. A great get for the Reds. I mean, assuming this isn't some obscene contract, but yeah, just really filling out this bullpen. We'll talk a little bit more here, Mike, kind of about what the bullpen might look like. But there was 3 other minor league signings that could maybe get into play with that, and another player the Reds got back that we thought we were going to lose. So we'll start off with Josh Staumont. This was a guy I was really excited about, honestly. So the Staumont and Barlow, I think they both pitched in Kansas City, right? And they came in like at the same time. And I actually was a little bit more excited about Staumont than I was Barlow, the minor league signing last year, because I thought he had a little bit more upside. Last year, missed the entire year with some sort of injury. I searched the interweb and had not been able to find what that injury was, but he was placed on the full season injury list by the Louisville Bats early in the 2025 season. He didn't pitch again. But this is a guy. I mean, this is a guy that had the strikeout rate over 10 batters per 9 innings. Struggles a lot with command, but he is the kind of high upside arm that I really wanted the Reds to target with minor league signings this year. I'm glad they were able to bring him back, and I love that he's a compliment to guys like Pierce Johnson and Caleb Ferguson.
Right. I remember too when because I think they announced Barlow and Staumont together. I remember being confused. I thought Barlow would get the minor league deal and Staumont would get the major league deal, and obviously it turned out well for Barlow. But yeah, this high upside is somebody who throws hard and has had production in the past. You see why somebody like Pierce Johnson gets the major league deal, which we're assuming, and then Staumont gets the minor league deal. Obviously there was the injury, but just like consistency, right? You pay for that consistency, and that's what keeps you in the majors. So hopefully, we can have a fresh slate with Staumont, and he would be able to at least be somebody, because we saw it last year as much as a team with this offense had to use its bullpen. We had to go down. We don't make the playoffs if we don't get contributions from people like Connor Phillips or even Lyon Richardson, right? Who struggled at the end, but we got some big innings from some people. And so I don't doubt that there's going to be minor league pitchers there that are, we're going to bring in for minor league signings. I wouldn't even say we're done with minor league reliever signings that are going to have to contribute on this Reds team because of just the nature of how this team and how Tito uses his bullpen.
The other 2 signings, Brandon Liebrant. This is a guy that actually pitched for the Reds in 2024. People might have forgotten that whole 6 innings. Was with the Reds AAA affiliate Louisville that entire year. Last year with the Yankees, I mean, he pitched pretty well at their AAA affiliate. Did not get caught up all year at a 2.85 ERA. The FIP and other things like that, 4.62 FIP, so certainly nothing great there. I just view this more as just a depth signing for a starting pitcher. I don't really make a whole lot out of that. I know he had some. Was at one point I think with the Phillies was a pretty highly coveted or higher up there prospect. But for me, this is just a depth piece and really nothing more.
Right, especially with Brandon Williamson and Julian Aguilar, on the way back, but you don't really know what their timeline's going to be. This is somebody that's going to eat innings in AAA, and then potentially make a spot start. Hopefully that we don't come to that because of the pitching depth that I think that we've built up in Cincinnati. But yeah, I agree. Just depth there to eat innings in AAA.
Hopefully nothing more than a doubleheader emergency call up for a second
Randy
game.
Wynn or whatever. Right?
Yes. One of those. Todd Redmond. Maybe we can have that kind of year. That 2012.
Oh man,
special year. Keep it going. Hagen Danner, the other signing here by the Reds. This was just over the weekend. Not a whole lot on him. He throws four-seam fastball 95, sinker 95, curveball 81, slider 88 miles per hour. The curveball rated as the best pitch, but he's got a little bit higher velocity. Was able to miss barrels. But again, this is just it looks to me more like another minor league depth signing that you never know. Sometimes these guys are able to figure it out, but I wouldn't make a whole lot more out of that at this point.
Right. I think the interesting thing about him is that he was a hitter until 2021. So I think that, pitching coaches see something like that and see maybe some more clay that they might be able to mold out of that. So obviously, since then he has been a relief pitcher and been in the minors and to varied success. But I would imagine that this is somebody that maybe they've seen something that they feel like they can fix, or they're just willing to have a lottery ticket on somebody that just maybe needs to grow into being able to be a pitcher and be better at pitching. So, yeah, once again, I think a very good depth piece to stick in AAA.
And last but not least on the moves, Lyon Richardson cleared waivers. I was a little surprised by this, just because, in 2024, Lyon Richardson was one of the Reds' top, I think, 15 prospects at one point. Had obviously a very disappointing 2025, but he had some good moments still with the Reds last year. It's kind of surprised no one took a shot on him, a guy that does throw really hard. So I'm thrilled that he cleared waivers and can be minor league depth. Reds did unfortunately lose Keegan Thompson to the Colorado Rockies, a pitcher that I tabbed the very light Nick Martinez. Unfortunately, they lost him, but obviously they lost him because they added some better pieces to their 40-man roster. So I'm not going to lose any sleep over it. I would have loved for him to clear waivers. I would love for all these guys to clear waivers and just have the greatest AAA depth that you possibly can, but that's kind of a little impossible to have.
Yeah, I understand the Richardson one too, is because also has the ability to potentially become a starter again as well. I know he's pitched mostly out of the bullpen, but I think was a starter for a while and had some starts for some of the previous Reds teams as well. So yeah, I mean, I'm happy that he's here. I think that he still is somebody that can contribute. And I think he kind of was a little bit overwhelmed last year in the situations that he was put in, but I'm glad that we don't have to give up on that guy, and that he still is somebody that may be a good stash in AAA as well.
All right, well, the Reds bullpen, I tell you what, going into this offseason, I know everyone was like hitter, which is still what everyone's saying right now, but I think we were kind of like, hey guys, like this bullpen, like it is rough. Like they were going to lose Pagan, Barlow, Suter. I mean, you're looking up and down. I mean, it was Tony Santillan was your closer. You had Graham Ashcraft as your setup guy, and then it was like Connor Phillips is like the next most trusted reliever. And so they have completely rebuilt this bullpen this offseason. And certainly, we could debate till we're blue in the face about was that the right move or not. I don't really have a hot take on that. It's kind of one of those we'll wait and see, because there's players on both sides that had upside. There's players on offense that have upside, and we also, again, we don't know if this is the complete roster too. The Reds could certainly still make a big trade and get a big bat, and it wouldn't shock me. But they did spend their free agency money, at least we think almost all of it, on their bullpen, which clearly shows that the Reds valued bullpen depth more than a Rhys Hoskin type signing, at least we think. So right now, as it stands, Mike, you have Emilio Pagan as your closer, Tony Santillan and Graham Ashcraft as setup guys, although Ashcraft, I'd say, maybe is on the bubble there. Then you have Johnson and Ferguson. You have Sam Mole, Connor Phillips, and then Zach Maxwell, Luis May / whoever is that last spot. So the thing that I like is right now you're not banking on any of these minor league signings to be a spot in your bullpen. The guys like Staumont, like Danner, Junior Marte, none of those guys are even. They would need injuries to even get up, and they would have to probably really perform well. So I do like the fact that, well, yeah, this bullpen may not be incredible. There certainly is a lot more certainty than we thought there was 2 months ago.
Right, and that's not to mention if potentially Rhett Lauder goes to the bullpen and they start him there as maybe a long man or something like that too. So there's still Yasver Zulueta. I can never say his name correctly as well. So you're right. There is depth. They are setting themselves up, understanding that this 162 season is a slog when it comes to pitching depth. And we saw that benefit them last year. I think, the Mets ran out of pitchers. Like they were just calling up AA guys and hoping that they could, and running them out there. And ultimately, that cost them. So yeah, this is definitely something that they've set themselves up well for, especially, coming out of all the uncertainty that we had going into the offseason.
Yeah, I mean, and not to mention also, I mean, like, I don't think it's too crazy to say if Chase Petty doesn't figure it out as a starter, I don't think he's going to get the whole year to keep figuring it out as a starter. I think at some point they'll be like, hey, we're going to move you to the bullpen and see if we can at least get some value out of you this year, guy that's already debuted. Guys like Jose Franco, starter too, Julian Aguilar, those guys could be relievers if you needed to. Brandon Williamson. I mean, you just got a lot of dudes with Nate Pearson. You got a lot of dudes with some potential that you can really mix and match. And I would say this, Mike. I would say overall, I do think Nick Martinez and Zach Littell, the 2 months of Zach Littell, I think those were much bigger losses than this fan base kind of thought. I guess in the addition of Scott Barlow, was anyone else? Brent Suter, is there anyone else that they lost? I think that's pretty much it. Yeah. But I would say, Mike, that the Reds pitching right now, when you're adding hopefully a full season or a modified full season on Chase Burns, you're adding Rhett Lauder, you're adding these other bullpen signings, I would say that right now on paper, the Reds pitching is better than it was last year.
Yeah. And hopefully gonna get the biggest question there is health, right? But I think that they've set themselves up to be able to weather your 30 games IL stint for a Nick Lodolo blister or something like that. You know what I mean? That is knock on wood, but is inevitably coming at some point. So. And for managing innings between Chase Burns and Rhett Lauder, who are up and have pitched some, but obviously they're still early on in their career. So yeah, I agree. I think it's good. We'll see where that ends. I think that they are. What was the quote? They're loath for trading. Oh no, that was TJ Friedel. But I don't think that they're gonna, as much as people want, people are gonna trade Brady Singer unless it brings back a significant piece, because while a lot of people may think of him as he's the fifth starter, I think we saw last year of how valuable he was, especially, he was getting, we see all these guys, Andrew Abbott in the past, have really, down the stretch have struggled. Brady Singer was nails down the stretch. Like in August and September, he was probably our second best pitcher behind, Hunter Green when he came back and started throwing one hitters. So I agree. I think that we're set up for hopefully being able to do something on the offense or on the pitching side to potentially cover some of the lack of production that we're potentially going to see on the offensive side of things.
Yeah, I didn't love the idea of hurting what got the Reds to the playoffs last year, and that was their pitching. I mean, that's the reason the Reds made the playoffs, and I felt like it could have been very easy to, all right, well, let's just, we'll trade Singer or whatever, and we'll just, hey, we need the bat. That's what everyone wants. Let's just make the people happy. And it doesn't actually lead to more wins. It actually could make the team worse. But, again, and people say, well, he made the playoffs with 83 wins. I mean, they won 83 games despite going 3-12 in extra innings. They won 83 games despite Ellie De La Cruz being worth 0.2 F4 the last 2 months of the season. He was on a 6.1 F4 pace prior to that. Literally the entire offense, Mike, outperformed outside of Noel Marte. Every one of them. And these aren't old dudes. Like, these are all guys that are entering their prime. Yes, they're not all going to bounce back, but there's not really a lot of room to go the other way, right?
Right.
Sal Stewart only played 18 games. The Reds' third base situation, I think people forget how bad it was pre-Ke'Bryan Hayes, a negative 0.4 F4. So whether you love or hate Ke'Bryan Hayes, he's an upgrade at third base versus what they had for the first several months of the season. We talked about Burns and Lauder. And I did the math here. The last 5 seasons, the 6th best record in the NL, that's the last wildcard spot, averaged 85.2 wins. So, again, I'm just like everyone else. I want them to make a trade or what. It seems like it has to be a trade at this point. I want them to go get a big bat. But I don't think they're going to force it. I really don't think they're going to force it. And if they don't, I still think this is a roster that that has a chance to make the playoffs.
Yeah, I agree. And there is, I think a big thing can be made of that um, extra innings record. Like, I know that everyone's just like, well, they're just not clutch. They don't have the right mindset for it. And I think that probably played into it a little bit. Tito talked about how he's going to evaluate everything, starting with that. But I think a bunch of that is still luck too. Like you can see people that are just like terrible at that, and then it flips completely in the next year. And what has changed? Not much, So do I think that they're going to be stellar with, in extra innings? No, I wouldn't say that they're necessarily going to be amazing at it. But can you pick up 2 wins there? For sure. Like, can you pick up 2 or 3 wins there that makes you competitive in the wild card? I think absolutely you can. So that I think that is something too that we can. I don't want to say count on, but I think that we can hope that swings us into the other direction.
Do you know what the 2022 Cincinnati Reds record in extra inning games was? The team that went 62 and 100.
No, what was it?
6-5.
6-5, yeah.
I mean,
Clutch, guys.
Hey, look, they couldn't win anything, but man, when it got to extra innings, those dogs, Donovan Solano, man, you weren't effing with those guys.
Never say die.
In all seriousness, I completely agree with you. What I would say, I don't necessarily think that this Reds team is necessarily built for extra innings because they don't have the elite relievers, which I think so much of extra innings is going to be luck. I think we know and recognize that. But what would be beyond the luck that you could actually control would be elite relievers. Reds don't really have that. Maybe they have some guys that could turn into that, but they don't really have that. And they don't have
strikeout guys, right? Specifically, strikeout guys are going to stray in that. That runner.
Yeah, exactly. And they didn't have a great offense either. So again, I don't think you can expect the Reds to have a great record in extra innings, but you should expect them to be closer to 500. And if they were anywhere close to 500 last year, this team would have not just run away with the final wildcard spot. They would have been competing for a home game.
Yeah, and then we don't have to get the Dodgers in the first round. So who knows? Who knows how that would have turned out for us?
Maybe not. They were 7 games behind the Padres. All right, well, Mike, the Reds signed a bat, Michael Toglia. This was the guy that you called. We did our a show after the non-tenders, after the players were non-tendered by their teams, and Toglia was one of the first names that you mentioned, and when we went into that, past the Adolis Garcia type players. I love this move. I think this is the kind of player I want the Reds to target with their minor league deals, the high upside guys that could play really well at Great America Ballpark. But Mike, the floor is yours, my friend. Tell us about Michael Toglia and why you like this move.
Yeah, I think first off, I need to explain to Reds country that it's Toglia there's a G there that you don't pronounce. So it's Toglia. I listened to some.
Never get that right.
It's all right. You just say it fast, and they won't be able to tell that you're saying
Toglia.
Yeah. But yeah, former first-round pick for the Rockies, and actually a college teammate of Matt McClain at UCLA. But he sprung onto the scene. I think he had a 2.2 WAR season 2 years ago, but last year had just an all-time bad season. His strikeout rate was almost 40%. He had a little bit of power, but really struggled and got sent down to the minors. But down in the minors was pretty good. Showed a lot of power, a smaller strikeout rate, obviously, and has power. He's a switch hitter, plays first base, a big, tall first baseman to maybe catch an errant Ellie De La Cruz throw over to first base. But this, I think, like I mentioned in our previous video, he's the perfect guy I think that you would want to, buy a lottery ticket on, because this guy has all kinds of power and is coming out of Colorado. And we explained how, while it boosts your power because of the thin air, it has all kinds of negative effects outside of that as well. So a change in scenery, I think, will be something that he could benefit from. He's a minor league deal, right? So he's coming just to start playing in Louisville, and may even benefit from, I know that some people here might be mad about this, but may even benefit from some Chris Valaika tutelage. I've seen where it's just like, hey man, we know 40% strikeout is too much. We know you have power, but let's work on being maybe being more of put the ball in play and let your prodigious bat speed and power take over. And he's the kind of guy that you think of where it's just like, if that dude hits a bunch of line drives, they're just gonna fly out of Great American Ballpark. So I agree. I think this guy is a great lottery ticket to have to put in AAA in case there's injuries, or maybe you catch lightning in a bottle and he just goes on an absolute tear and gets called up to help this ball club.
He actually is the rare player, Mike, that is projected to hit more home runs at Great American Ballpark than Coors Field every year of his career. He would have been projected to hit more at Great American Ballpark than at Coors. In fact, that 2024 season projected for 31 home runs at Great American Ballpark. He didn't play a full season that year either. So, and like you mentioned, the numbers at AAA were great last year. So, yeah, this is the kind of player I want the Reds to take swings at with these minor league deals. Take advantage. He gives you a chance to be able to have players that can take advantage of this ballpark. So, yeah, I big fan of this. And there's no risk. If he's what he was last year,
he just stays in AAA all year.
Or he goes and finds somewhere else to play, or goes to independent ball. Like,
yeah,
this is great. Like, this is the kind of the signings you want. I will say though, you probably do not want this guy playing first base.
Yeah,
minus 10 outs above average in
not
a
great.
limited season. This guy's probably a DH. I think Sal Stewart could do better than minus 10. I have a lot of belief in Sal Stewart. Or Spear or whoever. I think Reese Hines could take a first base glove and probably do better than that. So this guy is a bat, and it should probably not be thought of as anything more. But interesting to see. He's the kind of player, Mike, that you just envisioned him going to spring training and just absolutely raking, and you kind of have a interesting decision. And obviously, it would depend a lot about the health of other players. At that point, but it wouldn't shock me if he has like a 1200 OPS in spring training.
Yeah, he's gonna hit some nukes. Yeah,
and you're like, man, should we put this guy on the roster? Should we not? But yeah, I'm really, really excited about this move. And Mike had it first.
That's right.
First. Another player, maybe not as exciting. Garrett Hampson, the hamster, as Trace called him. Coming back to Cincinnati Reds. Look, I don't have an issue with it just as long as he's not starting games in the corner outfield for the Cincinnati Reds in 2026. If they want him as a depth piece, I have no problem with that. He's got some speed, whatever. That's kind of how I view it.
Yeah, he's coming back as a minor league person that is going to be able to potentially provide depth in the case of injury is really what it is. I think the biggest revelation though is when our own very Nick Kirby looked at the Louisville roster and saw one Santiago Espinal still on the roster. Do you think that after they outrighted him, they secretly signed him to a minor league deal, or do you think they just haven't updated the website yet?
I don't know. I fell out of my chair. I was like, wait a minute. Santiago, how'd you get on there? What happened? And I know we tweeted out at Gordon Whitmire, and I didn't see him clarify on it. I haven't seen anyone clarify on it yet. My guess is they probably don't know either. So yeah, it's interesting. So just to kind of give everyone a preface of what Mike's talking about here, the Louisville Bats roster appears to be completely up to date with all of the minor league signings. Like, there's no other players that were like left on last year that just are left on there. Like, it looks like everything is up to date outside of Santiago Espinal. And there was like some conflicting reports that he elected free agency. But there was also another report that he was outrighted and accepted AAA. So We don't really know. Santiago Espinal might be on the Louisville Bats roster. Again, Santiago Espinal would be a perfect minor league signing. I mean, he would. Like,
Nobody tell Tito he's there.
yeah, well, like if this is the Los Angeles Dodgers, you'd be like, hey, this is a great minor league signing. This is a great depth piece to have. This guy that, might be able to hit left-handed pitching, can play multiple positions, is a good glove, good solid glove, good guy, all those kind of things. But we're just, and I don't want to be a Tito. I really don't want to. I'm trying to turn a new leaf, Mike, in 2026.
Sorry.
At least until the 10th game of the season. I'm really trying to give Tito a fresh start in 2026, and I want to go in with some fresh eyes and take a reset here and try to see Tito's value. But if I see Santiago Espinal batting second, Mike, I don't know. I don't know if I can go on, brother.
Oh man, he did bat second for so long last year. So yeah, I don't know. I agree with you. I think he's fine sitting in Louisville, but let's just hope that Tito doesn't fall in love with him when he has to make a spot start because of a nagging injury or something like that, and then Will Benson gets DFA'd to add him to the roster. Oh man. That might be the end. Yeah, Nick Kirby might quit right there.
Knife in the stomach there. We'll see. We don't know if anything's official. We're just telling you what we saw, but his face is on the Louisville Bats roster. So maybe it's a mistake, but everything else checked out there. So we shall see, and we'll continue to digest these roster moves as time goes on. Deep South Commodities is a proud supporter of Chatterbox Reds and our Deep Drive of the Day, and DSC is a leader in renewable commodities for biofuel production, specializing in used cooking oil collection, aggregation, and sales. Visit www.deepsouthcommodities.com for more information. Thanks as always to our friends at DSC. And we also want to remind you that you can call or text 988 anytime, day or night. The 988 Suicide and Crisis Lifeline is a place to get support for anything related to mental health. Whether it's an immediate crisis, simply wanting to find out how to connect with care, or anything in between, it's a 100% confidential, secure, and anonymous way to reach out for help when you don't know where else to turn. To connect, call or text 988 or visit mantherapy.org to get help. It's okay not to be okay. All right, some quick Reds news to get to before we talk about the Chicago Cubs, everyone's favorite topic around here. Ellie De La Cruz and Nueve Marte officially added to Reds Fest. Reds Fest is this weekend down at the Convention Center. That is January 16th and 17th, Friday and Saturday. Fortunately, I'm not going to be able to make it down this year. Hope to make it back next year, but I know it will be a good time for all. Some other Reds news. Reds on a Sunday night baseball. It's actually Sunday afternoon baseball. If you haven't heard, NBC is taking over Sunday night baseball this year. The Reds will play the Cubs 8:33 p.m., and the Reds have a total of 3 games on Peacock. But the big news over the weekend and last week, the Cubs made 2 pretty big moves that in some way changed maybe the landscape of the NL Central. They trade their top prospect, Owen Caissie, plus some additional prospects to the Marlins for starter Edward Cabrera. And then the big one on like a whole Chicago night that everyone was living in glory in Chicago. The Cubs sign Alex Bregman. Mike, what's your overall thoughts on this?
Yeah, obviously, don't love a player of Alex Bregman's caliber going to a division rival. Has showed extreme. He's been very good offensively and defensively, and then every stop he's been. The comment too is also that he's just an incredible guy in the clubhouse too, benefiting young players, helping people understand that as well. So 5 years, $175 million seems steep for a 31-year-old. Especially since obviously coming off a good year, but one that had an injury and that ultimately led to him being sputtering out at the end, right? I think he had a 76 WRC plus in September or August. So, I think he adds a huge benefit to their lineup. I don't know what that contract's going to look like for 36-year-old Alex Bregman, but as of going into this year, I think this makes them a lot better. And if they weren't already the favorite, now the prohibitive favorite for the NL Central.
Yeah, I mean, both of these moves definitely make the Cubs better in 2026. I don't think there's any argument there. Now, could both of these moves backfire long term? Yeah, absolutely. And when you're a small market team like the Reds or like the Brewers and Pirates, you want the Cubs to make these moves that are short-term focused, that hurt on the long end, because that's how you can compete. Because all payrolls are not equal. You can have a $200 million payroll that gets run circles around it by a $100 million payroll, because the $100 million payroll is full of dudes that you like. When the 200s, you got 5 bad contracts, and it's terrible. So, yeah, the Bregman, obviously, really good player. I think you had to kind of expect that the Cubs were going to get someone of that ilk after losing. I think people forget they lost Kyle Tucker, who was
they haven't officially lost him yet.
Well,
they could re-sign him as well. So.
Well, okay, if they re-sign Kyle Tucker on top of this, yeah, then I'll be in full panic mode. But all assumptions is he's gone. And he was a 4.5 win player. I think because he didn't play very well and was hurt at the end of the year, I think people kind of forgot. He was a massive reason why they had success. So they basically, Bregman, Tucker is a lateral move. I think Tucker has a lot more upside. I love Kyle Tucker. That would be the dream player for me. But the Reds are never going to get him. Edward Cabrera, really talented pitcher, obviously has had a lot of injury concerns. Could certainly be a pain in the Reds in 2026. But, man, giving up your top prospect and Owen Caissie, I think that has a chance to really backfire on the Cubs. Ultimately, we'll see. I still like the Reds' rotation a lot better. I think I almost like the Reds' bullpen better, although we'll see what the Cubs do. Mike, the most interesting thing is to see what do the Cubs do next. Because Peter Apple of Just Baseball does a really great job, friend of the program. He did put out a little video on this. And I guess there's a sentiment going around that Nico Hoerner might get traded because the Cubs are now right up against that luxury tax threshold. And Tom Ricketts, their owner, has said, we're not doing that. Like, it's been completely against that, like a couple $1 million away. And so if they want to add bullpen arms or anything else, like, they're going to have to trade a contract. And Nico Hoerner, a free agent, this would be the opposite. Like, trading Nico Hoerner might actually be a good long-term move for the Cubs. But in terms of 2020, but in terms of 2026, I mean, that would be great for the Reds. I mean, this guy's been like a perennial 4-win player. So, like, if you're talking to me, you're losing Kyle Tucker, you're losing Nico Hoerner, and you're adding Alex Bregman and Edward Cabrera, I'm not really sure you got better with those moves.
Yeah, that's feels like that's a wash.
And lost
there.
Owen Caissie, who is a prospect that's ready for the big leagues.
And basically wasn't playing because there wasn't room because of PCA Happen, Seiya Suzuki. So there, I agree that would be interesting to see if there is that. Maybe that is something that if they don't add anything bullpen wise, we see maybe at the end of even at the trade deadline, he's like, hey, we're going to bring in bullpen help because we need bullpen. Let's get rid of some of this cash, whether it's Nico Hoerner, who's potentially expendable because of, who they might be able to play at second base, and then, be able to have room under the luxury tax to be able to get relievers in there or trade for somebody that's going to help with that. So who knows? I know it's kind of a weird land to be thinking about people spending up to the luxury tax when you deal with the Reds. It's just like, oh, cool. They're going to spend over $100 million more than the Reds. But I was very interested in looking into Edward Cabrera because I knew he had all kinds of great stuff. But I mean, in my head, my initial thought, and maybe this is from playing fantasy baseball, is like, this dude's injury prone. And I looked it up. This dude in 2022, 47 games missed elbow tendonitis. 2023, 28 games missed shoulder impingement. 2024, 51 games missed shoulder impingement. 2025, 12 games with a blister, and then the last 20 games with an elbow sprain. So he he seems to have avoided the big old Tommy John, but each year is going to miss starts due to injuries. And if you look at the Cubs rotation, which we've seen, hey, look at how this stacks up. Obviously, Justin Steele, we don't know when he'll be back. He had Tommy John last year, but they got Matthew Boyd as their one, who pitched 179 innings last year and has not pitched more than 78 innings since 2019. So, this is the definition of injury prone. Jameson Taillon missed 87 games in his 3 years in Chicago. And then Cade Horton, who missed the postseason because of injury, and Shota, who ran out of gas, Shota Imanaga. So it's just the once you get past the initial bits, a couple of injuries there, and that rotation looks very thin. Then you're calling on Colin Ray and Ben Brown and Javier Assad, people that have some experience, but are definitely not the big boppers that you're expecting going into the home stretch. So, I mean, they may all stay healthy, but they've got, and the Reds obviously also don't have a bunch of dudes that are, throwing 30 starts a year. But I think that this is somebody that does give you upside, Edward Cabrera, but, has a whole bunch of risk because of his his injury history that we've seen throughout his career.
Yeah, definitely. If you look at, if they get to the end of 2026 and the Reds finish with a better record ahead of the Cubs, it's probably because the Cubs had a similar situation to the Mets last year, where they had this great lineup, but they just could not keep their pitching up to it. And Cade Horton, I mean, he was incredible and looks like an absolute stud, but I mean, could he have a sophomore slump? I mean, we've seen it with Reds. Hunter Green had a sophomore slump. Jameson Taillon's going to be 34 years old. Looked like it was that contract. I don't remember. Look, it was going to be a really bad contract for the Cubs. Within the last 2 years, he pitched much better. But yeah, I mean, Imanaga, I was honestly kind of surprised that they brought him back after the option got declined or something there. Yeah. But yeah, that's definitely where the Reds' bread and butter is compared to the Cubs. Is that I think the Reds' pitching staff as a whole has a lot more upside than the Cubs, and yeah, I mean, we'll kind of see how it all shakes out, and I'm interested to see if they move Nico Horner. It definitely makes that team kind of not sure if I see the full vision there.
Yeah, I mean, they can hit. There's no doubt about it. They've got, I mean, if you were to put the two teams next to each other, right? There's Ellie De La Cruz, and then it's 5 Cubs hitters before the next Reds hitter. And maybe you can argue that how it's just their lineup is much deeper and has shown over multiple seasons in a lot of different ways that they are, that they can hit the ball well. But we'll see if they can stay healthy pitching wise.
Their lineup is basically a whole lineup of 2023 Matt McLean's. That's they're all that 120 WRC plus guy. Most of them aren't necessarily elite hitters. Michael Busch was, but he was a platoon guy. Most of them are all just there's just no let up in that whole lineup. And I think I've seen some studies. Brian Kinney did a really good one on this, where it actually is probably he said run production overall for a team came to the consensus that it is better to have 9 guys that are all above average than 3 elite guys and a bunch of whatevers, which kind of feels like that could be the Reds and Cubs if things pan out for the Reds the way that we kind of hope it is. But yeah, there's just no lineup, no let up whatsoever in that lineup, and that's gonna be a problem. But we'll see if the pitching can hold up their end of the bargain. Any final thoughts on the Cubs?
No. Obviously, still a huge contender and somebody that the Reds are going to have to deal with. But yeah, Bregman signing is going to be really good for them, I think, next year.
And we say all this to know, obviously, the Brewers are going to win the division by 10 games.
Probably.
That's how it works. We all know better.
They're going to trade away Freddie Peralta, and they're going to somehow win 100 games.
Reds fans, Cubs fans, we both know. Somehow the Brewers' devil magic will find its way. It always does. And we'll both be looking up at them at the end of the year. Until proven otherwise, that's my opinion going forward. All right, well, Mike, appreciate you coming on. This was a lot of fun. We're going to have a lot more content this week. If you listen to this on Monday, the day of the release, tomorrow, me and Mike are going to discuss the arbitrations. We're going to get back around to that, who signed with the Reds, who didn't, who's still out there, kind of give some thoughts on that. Wednesday, me and Craig are going to talk about the FanDuel. Reds lost their TV provider. So we'll get to that. That's the plan, but it's always subject to change if the Reds decide to do something stupid or maybe something great. And we'll shovel that around. But that's the plan. Mike, appreciate you. All kinds of other content here on Chatterbox Sports. New episode of Chatterbox Bearcats dropped Sunday night. Another tough loss for Wes Miller's ball club. I know there's a new episode of the Flying Line FC Cincinnati podcast, Off the Bench, Stone Shields, Monday through Friday, 10 a.m. to noon. So be sure to check all that out. All that is in the episode notes below. I hope you have a great Monday. Hope you have a great rest of your week. Go Reds.